Not good. Today we're looking at plastic welding. How to fix this so it's stronger than it was originally. How to free-form plastic parts to make parts that weren't even there. All with simple hand tools, garage tools that you should have. You want to find out? Keep watching. So here we got a typical break where the piece of plastic just snapped right off. We just got to stick it back on. You could try stuff like super glue and you'll find out really quickly that super glue does not work good on plastic. So it's a quick and easy repair. We need one tool. You basically need one tool to do this entire job, and that is a soldering iron. That's it. Yep, for electrical work, solder work, you need a soldering iron. You can use one of these inexpensive pencil style. Just make sure it has a wide tip, but you can pick these up on Amazon. I'll put a link below for $10 or something, sometimes less, somewhere around there, and they work just as good. I like something like this because has a trigger. I can turn it on and off and regulate the temperature, and so if it gets too hot, I'm not burning the plastic. I can kind of regulate it a little bit better. But the basics behind welding plastic is as simple as it sounds. We just stick it there. We take the soldering iron, we heat it up, and we just melt the plastic together. I'll show you a couple techniques to it, but there's a little bit more to it if we actually want that repair to be stronger than original, and I'll show you that as well. So with most plastic parts, you have a pretty side and an ugly side, a side that won't get seen. So I'm going to go from the ugly side. First I'm just going to put it where I want it, where it goes, and I'm going to, we'll call it essentially a tack weld, where I'm just going to come in here and just melt the pieces right on the seam, back together, give it a second, come along, do a tack weld. Okay, that's tack welded. Now the basics behind it is we need to melt both sides of plastic and mix them together. So what I will do is go through the crack. We'll just start here in the middle. And I want to go 90, the trick is you want to go 90% of the way through, and then I'm just going to fold it and fold it. Both the bulges of plastic that popped up on both sides. Come down the crack, fold, 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 fold. I'm just mixing plastic from both sides, going down into my crack. Mix. Now one thing you want to remember, you want to go as deep into this split, into your damage as possible without, especially if you have a cosmetic side on this side, without going all the way through. Now if you don't have a cosmetic side on this side and this side doesn't matter, what you're going to do is go 75% of the way through and then come on this side and go 75% of the way through and mix it in. And this is the basics behind plastic welding. So for a cosmetic purpose, that repair is done. This is probably 75% as strong as original, mainly just because I didn't come through on the other side. But it would hold up. I could put this in and just use it. But we want to make that even stronger so it doesn't crack again in that vulnerable area. So there's a few things we can do to do that. So just like in welding, a filler rod is going to help us take that repair and build it up and make it stronger. We have plenty of room on the inside. We can build it up, make it a way stronger repair. And what we want to use we want a filler rod. They sell plastic filler rod, but there's really no point when you can get a lifetime supply in something like this, cutting up one, free 5-gallon bucket. This is plastic that is called HDPE. HDPE is my preferred plastic that I use to do all plastic repairs. It comes in a million different colors. It's readily available. It doesn't smell bad when it melts. Kind of smells like candle wax when it melts. Some plastics like PVC, stuff like that, you don't want to use those to smell atrocious and they don't work that good. But you can get HDPE in things like milk jugs. This is paper thin. I use that all the time. This is the dryer, the fin inside your tumble dryer. That's that. That works fantastic. And you can get it in a bunch of different, contours, shapes, cut out to what you want. But this is what I'm going to use for filler rod. You can also use things like zip ties. It's nylon, I find this a lot of people use this as very brittle. When you heat it up and get it, this doesn't have much strength to it. You know, once you heat it up and melt it into the other plastic, I find this to be brittle. So I don't use that very much, but a lot of people use that. I have used it. It's okay. It's just not as good as HDPE plastic. So I want some filler rod. Easy enough. HDPE plastic cuts fantastic with all woodworking tools. You know, throw a jigsaw or anything else. Here we just have some side cutters, and I can just essentially just cut myself off a piece of filler rod, and that's it. And so I can take this and now melt this over the top of my repair. But there's one more step that will make this virtually indestructible and stronger than original, and that is this window screen. This is metal window screen mesh. If you lay this into the plastic, it is way stronger than it originally was. So this right here is a fiberglass window screen down here. This does work, it's just not what you want. This right here is just typical metal window screen, and you get one from a window and it'll last you a lifetime. But we'll just cut out a piece. It actually cuts just with scissors. It's that easy, but it's all stainless steel wire mesh. And essentially what it does is it bonds in there, and with the wires going different ways, it makes it virtually impossible for you to rip it apart. So what I do is I just need a repair piece about the size of my repair. We'll start in this crack right here. The nice thing about the metal is this is going to carry heat, and we can just kind of touch it, and what it'll do is just start sinking. There, it started sinking. And so you just push on top of the metal mesh, and it'll just sink right into your repair. I'll just go along. It's going off a little bit. It's just going off the crack, and then we can bend it back over. And then we can just follow the center of my crack. No jokes. There's a lot of crack jokes in this video. There you go. That will not crack on that same joint. That is strong. Now, if I want to now, if I'm really concerned about it, if it's really structural, that's when I'd come back in with my filler rod. And especially like in this inside joint right here, this is a good spot for it. I will just take the chunk of filler rod that I made, and I'll just start mixing and blending that in. Now you have to, when you're using the filler rod, you can't just melt it to the surface. See, if I just melt it, it will just come right off. You got to melt below it too. So you got to mix. I kind of like using different color filler rod just because you can see where you've mixed it in. And so I'm mixing the two colors. And these are two different types of plastic too. I believe, actually don't even know what the brown plastic is. I know that the gray is HDPE, but I have no idea what the brown is. But that joint right there, where it's probably where the crack started, right at a seam, is stronger than original. I've reinforced it with a gusset essentially, but I could come across here in various different areas if I just, especially right down at the bottom down here, and I could just apply essentially a gusset right across the bottom as well. So for the most part, you can't tell that crack's there. Once I paint it, you wouldn't be able to tell. I could push some primer or something into that hole. But that repair right there is stronger than original. I've put a gusset here and here where the crack would start. I mean, I can flex it. I mean, it will. This plastic is so thin and brittle, I'm going to break it somewhere else. But the repair is stronger than original, and that's what you want when you weld something. And the trick is mainly this screen material, this mesh. But what about if you don't have this screen material? Because not everybody just has old screen material laying around. I have done hundreds of repairs with copper wire. So this is just a chunk of copper wire. You pull out a strand. This is actually pretty thick stuff, but it doesn't really matter. So just cut off a chunk, pull out a strand, and the same area that I did down here, what I'm going to want to do is generally I will zigzag it so that these zigzags bite into each side. So we have a crack right here that's starting. So I will show you that. We just take these zigzags, essentially, just pretty basic. We'll just put it right over our crack. And what is going to happen is the zigzags, the loops, are going to keep it from pulling apart. And same thing, I'm just going to lay it right over the crack that's starting. And the metal, the nice thing about the copper or stainless steel of the screen material is it heats up further down and it just pushes right in. This right here, this just pushing this metal in, this makes it just, this is just what you want to do on every single plastic repair. It's the difference between it cracking again and never cracking again. It will crack somewhere else. So the way I made this piece right here was, it's actually two different pieces. I'll show you a picture. But essentially, it was just a flat piece. This face was just a flat piece, just like you would do in sheet metal. And it was kind of bent like that. And then I just got a piece for the top that was bent like that. And then I just plastic welded this seam in together. HDPE welds together beautifully without, I don't even have any reinforcement on itself. I only have reinforcement between the brown and the gray plastic. But let's build up this piece that is missing right here. Pretty simple. I took a piece that kind of had a contour to it, and I just scratched it out with the yawl, shape that I need it. And you can cut this out with jigsaw, everything else. It cuts actually pretty dang nice with just a pair of tin snips, aviation snips. Okay, got that piece all in. It protrudes a little bit, and that's fine, because this stuff is plastic. It cuts pretty easily. It actually sands pretty easy. So you can actually sand it with a really coarse sandpaper, and does work good. Things like just a metal abrasive cutoff disc work really good. They start kind of melting it. The thing that works, and I've used a ton, grinding discs, but the best thing I found is like blades. And so like a jigsaw or something works better. Take a handsaw, you know, I could just handsaw that out real fast. Here we just have a rotary carbide blade for metal, but that works amazingly well on the plastic and doesn't create a ton of heat where it just kind of remelts it. Now I like having multiple different chunks of plastic sitting around for different shapes because they have contours already built in, but you can make your own contours extremely easy. This is just a flat piece. You take your soldering iron. You can just, you know, where you want it to bend, just make a line. Go majority of the way through. Not all the way. It'll bend for you. And then you can just weld that seam right back up and you get nice, sharp, crisp bends. Or you can take the heat gun. You know, you just take a heat gun and warm it up and it'll bend however you want. You can take something like a blowtorch and it's fast. And HDPE is nice because it doesn't just bend. I mean, it doesn't just melt instantly, you know. And then we can put it where we want it, allow it to cool. You know, it gets to a plasticized state, and when it cools, it stays where you leave it. So you can come up with some cool shapes just with heat and stuff like that. Blowtorch, heat gun, soldering iron. You can see we're getting there. So that's how you plastic weld. That's how you make parts, and that's how parts are stronger than original. This will not break off with the mesh in there. That piece will not break off ever again. This piece right here, this will not break off. It'll break down further before it broke on this joint because I have the mesh material all into that joint everywhere. I have it reinforced with essentially, you know, plastic welding rod, homemade plastic welding rod. This should not break. That's kind of thin. I might reinforce that just a little bit. This down here, reinforce that. So that's how you plastic weld, and that's how you plastic weld and make it last. Use those tips and you'll end up with a strong repair. This will go back in the car. I'll paint it brown, but it'll go back in the car. Nobody will ever be the wiser. It'll sit there for another 40 years until somebody else decides to take it off the steering column and break another part of it. But thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. Bye. Can't the sprinkler just do its thing? How's it supposed to water the grass when you're up on it? Get it! Get it! Get in there! It's still going! You almost got it. I think it's gonna stop.